Today, I chat with Heather Eck, synesthesia artist and color alchemist. We will explore the healing power of art and how it can inspire personal growth and spiritual development. Heather is a renowned and award winning artist, spiritual, intuitive healer, and coach. Heather integrates her unique gift of synesthesia, artistic talents, energy healing, and intuitive abilities to create a unique soul portrait for her clients that holds the energy to help those on their transformative journey. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, same here. Um, so we're going to dive right in. I know there's a lot of information as we start to talk about this concept. It's going to unfold. And I'm
Mhm.
also going to talk about my personal experience with you and my soul portrait later on. So let's just dive right in. And can you just share a little bit about your personal journey and how you discovered your synesthetic abilities and influence on your art?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think that synesthesia is something that I've had since I was a little kid because I remember like laying on the floor of my bedroom and drawing what I heard in the music. So I would listen to music and then draw what I sort of saw. So synesthesia is where your senses get crossed. So when I listen to music or I eat something or taste something or smell something, I see it in my mind's eye as a color, a shape, or a symbol. So it's always like a sort of active movie screen in my mind. And I had it, I guess, for a really long time, but didn't really know what it was until recently. And then sort of discovered the vocabulary for it and then learned. I love the movie Ratatouille, Disney movie. And there's a scene where Remy the mouse is eating a piece of cheese and eating a strawberry at the same time, and it's animated with all these colors and symbols. And I'm like, oh, Remy has synesthesia like me. And
Wow.
it's like such a great visual for what the experience is. And so that comes to life in my artwork when I'm creating something or, just putting on the canvas what I'm seeing in my mind or what I'm experiencing through my intuition as well.
Okay, great. So synesthesia, and I may struggle throughout the podcast episode with that word occasionally, but I said it right that time.
You
So
did.
it is when you hear music and it integrates somehow or influences your senses, and then
Yeah.
you are able to see art.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's like your senses sort of cross signals. So, when normal, like some people will hear music and they'll just hear it. In my mind, both hear it and see it. And so it takes on like a visual form for me through, it's
Wow.
like seeing music play out across my mind's eye.
That's amazing. I had never heard of it before, and I think it's just fascinating. Um, so now, how do you translate this experience into your artwork? Because you do artwork, you're an artist,
Mhm.
obviously. You're also an intuitive, someone who guides people intuitively, and you combine the two. So, how do you translate this experience into your artwork? Any specific methods or techniques that you use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's kind of two styles of, I would say styles of art, like two sort of techniques for art that I use. One is where I'm using my synesthesia to sort of see and create a painting that sort of looks like what I'm experiencing, or sort of about like a conversation I want to have, just like with people or about the world or what's sort of happening in the world. And then there's what I would call the spirit portrait experience, where I paint the experience I have with somebody, where I see what color or symbol or shape they're pulling, through. And then I create a painting that sort of tells a story about who they are. So it's a little bit of like me trying to translate the experience that I have with someone or with something or with, just a, a current event onto canvas through color and form and shape, which often comes with a message or, something that's sort of telling a story about what's going on with that person or place.
So that's really interesting because I didn't realize that you also were able to translate a current event or something that's happening and maybe the collective conscious. Have you done anything recently um, with that? Is that
Yeah,
something that you need to, is that something that comes to you automatically or something that you need to tune into, let's say, a certain event that's happening? Let's say Earth Day, because today's Earth Day, or something else. Do you need to tune into that, or does it automatically, as you listen to music, does it automatically come into your third eye?
yeah. That's a
Mhm.
really good question because I think that there are times where I am not 100% aware of what it is that's coming through until the painting's done. And then I look at it and sort of meditate on it and then say, oh, I see what this is. Because there are times I think where I just feel inspired to create. So, for example, the other day I felt inspired to create something, and I had been thinking about a friend of mine who had been diagnosed with cancer. And I had been thinking about her experience, and I sort of pulling colors from her, and I was pulling yellow, green, and blue. So I was getting yellow for the identity, green for the heart, and blue for the throat. And this person was sort of going through like, I would say like not a crisis of faith, but more like an awareness of faith where they couldn't unsee what they had seen. It's kind of like this, once you have an awareness of your faith in something, you can't unsee it. It's like you can't unring the bell. And so I was thinking about her and painting this painting for her, and then I sat down and sat with it and I went, oh gosh, there's so much more that's coming through this painting that's telling me about this that is so much bigger than just my thought of her. It was like this big sort of opening of what she was going through, that was coming out on the canvas that I wasn't even like fully aware of in the moment. I was just sort of like the conduit through
Hmm.
which the painting was coming out. But it wasn't until I sat with it that I could sort of read it, and then understand what it was trying to say. So those sorts of things that happen are really interesting for me because I think in the moment, I really have to surrender my need to understand what's happening until I'm able to just let it all out and then sit with it and say, okay, this is what it's trying to say, or this is what it means for me
Wow,
now.
that's fascinating. So, can you walk us through a piece of your art? Let's say you're working with someone. So, you did a portrait with me,
Mhm.
um, which I will talk about more. But can you walk us through a piece of your art and explain how, like, the process? Like, I know that you just explained somewhat how you're the conduit and you just allow for that expression to filter through onto the canvas, but you do have a process that you go to, like a
Yeah.
setting up or whatever. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I do like a soul portrait or a spirit portrait for somebody, I will ask for their picture and I will sort of sit and meditate with their picture for a little bit. And usually colors will drop in very quickly for somebody, and it's usually 2 to 3 colors. And so I will sort of sit with those colors and say, okay, what does this mean? I'll get a sheet of paper next to me and then I'll start to read through the chakras and go, okay, what's at the crown? What color is the crown, what symbols coming through at the crown, and I'll do that all the way down the chakras. And then I'll kind of I'll play music and I'll let whatever music comes on be whatever it is. And usually the music also tells me something about the person and what is sort of happening with them. And then I'll start the painting. And as the painting starts, it's as though everything that is part of that experience is also part of that person's story. So for example, if I start to put alcohol on the paper and it goes in a spiral, then I know that there's some sort of cycle happening for that person, or they're experiencing something again. If the ink sort of explodes on the page, and then I know that there's something that needs to either have broken through or that they're on the precipice of a breakthrough. So there's all these different ways that the paint and the medium sort of is part of that story. And then once the painting's complete, then I have to sit with it again and go, okay, what's sort of the central theme here, or what's the main message? What's the painting's name? And then I'll sort of kind of piece together the story. And then once that's done, I'll sit with you over a Zoom session and tell you the story about your painting and what's coming through for you. And so that's a pretty interesting process for me to kind of try to tap into your energy and then try to, have a conversation, a loving conversation about what is happening and see if it resonates with you.
And you may not even know the person or speak to the person ahead of time. You just do this by a photograph and
Okay.
your intuitive connection, your ability to almost tap into their aura or their energy.
Yes.
That's fascinating. And you were saying how, as you're talking, I'm thinking like medium, you're almost like a medium, but not, more, but you are because you're connecting with energy, maybe not. But do you ever find that you're getting any, I don't know why I'm even going this route, but any ancestral energy coming through or any spirit energy, other like there are guides or anything coming through or your
Yeah.
guides that come through and help you with the art?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like there are always people in the room with me when I'm painting. And, I feel like sometimes I don't necessarily know who is there, but there is the energy of people there. And sometimes I have something that will like tap me on the ear. I'll feel my ear kind of
Yeah.
tap a little bit and I'll know either pay attention or there's something here that I have to kind of dig into. I think the biggest thing though is that I feel like I'm being supported with the urgency to deliver a message that I sometimes feel afraid to deliver, or I sometimes hesitate delivering because I either don't trust it or I'm afraid of what the, um, like what the, not the outcome, but just there's like a little bit of nervousness to say what is coming through really clearly, if that makes sense. Like,
It does. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think as someone who also uses their intuitive guidance when I'm working with other people, you need to be discerning almost as to how to express it. I mean,
yes,
maybe not so much of what you're expressing, but how to express it and have the person almost interpret the message themselves.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like the other
trusting
day.
is, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the other day, I was doing a portrait for somebody and we were over Zoom and I did his portrait live in person. And I was putting red ink down on the paper and I saw a heart start to form. And it wasn't a cartoon heart, it was like an anatomical heart. And I almost didn't say something. And then I said, for some reason, I'm seeing a heart, like a physical heart here. And I feel like there's a strong physical need to either protect the body or you're working on the body. And so I went through the whole thing and then finished. And he said, I just have to tell you, I just underwent some tests for my heart to make sure that my arteries were clear, that everything was clear. And he said, so when you said the heart, it made me feel really happy that you saw that energetically. And so it was something that I hesitated even to say, but then I was so glad that I did because it reaffirmed for him what was happening in his physical body and then the spiritual self at the same time. It's fascinating.
Oh, it's healing.
It
I'm
is.
listening to you tell this story, and I can't help but think that this person almost healed on another level because you validated for him what he was going through and that he's on the right path to helping himself.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. Yeah, I think part of the work that you do, or a big part of the work that you do, is healing. It
I
helps to
agree.
heal. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So my next question is, how do you think these colors do heal? I know you work with colors and you work with the chakra. So you integrate the chakra system into your work, right? Maybe we could talk a little bit about that because you did talk about how you go through and how you pull the colors. If you can talk a little bit about that connection.
Yeah, I was just, it's so funny. This morning, my son and I were driving in the car, and the song "Rainbow Connection" came on, the Kermit the Frog song,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think that's important for me." There's the rainbow connection, right? Like we all have a rainbow within our energetic selves, and the colors that we are conveying are telling a story about us, and so I associate the colors that I see either through my intuition or through my clairsentience or through my synesthesia with the rainbow, right? With the chakras. And so when I am seeing a color for somebody, it's showing me which chakra it's aligned with, and then whether it is out of balance or underbalanced. And then when I do a painting for somebody, the color that comes through is intended to be healing for them because it's offering them some method of healing or some sort of modality of healing for that chakra that needs the most support. So, for example, if I'm seeing somebody who's dwelling in a grief space and they come through to me as like a light blue gray, and I use this example a lot because I think a lot of people are in a grief space and they don't quite even know. Then the prescriptive color for them might be a bright orange because that's going to be uplifting and energizing, and it's going to help to kind of pull them up out of that grayish tone into something that's going to be brighter and more supportive of, healing or getting out into the world in a different way.
Yeah, that's you're as you were saying that. I love what you said. We all have a rainbow within our energetic self, and that you draw from that. So you
Yeah.
did a portrait for me. I didn't know what to expect. And when I saw it, it was just the most beautiful, beautiful thing I've ever seen on paper. The colors, and it just resonated with me so much. And I'm thinking about just right now in my mind the first time I saw it. And it looked like this beautiful big rose. And the colors were a lot of pink and magenta. And I've recently been really drawn to pink. And I'm wearing pink today purposely. And I never liked pink growing up. I was, I didn't, I'm an orange girl. I love orange. I love the passion of that color and that liveliness. But pink is also very healing for me because I've had a lot of grief with my mom dying early, and I've had breast cancer, which is pink. And I've
Hmm.
always like kind of pushed away that whole pink ribbon thing. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see that because it reminds me. So now I'm embracing it. And you validated that for me by showing me all these beautiful colors in this big, beautiful picture of this rose with some gold. And I wish I could show the listeners, but I will put it on my website as well. And it did represent something that you said to me, that you're birthing something. There was almost like a birth canal there.
Hmm.
And it does represent some things that I'm working on, that I have been working on. Um, so yeah, so it was amazing how what you were telling me during this session, and we've never met. We met briefly before just to chit chat about the show. Um, you really hit upon a lot of things, and it just blew me away. I was just um, really fascinated. And the way I'm going to use this is I'm going to hang it up in my office right in front of me and meditate on that. It's going to be part of my daily meditation. So I just, yeah, it's just beautiful. And I don't want to take up too much of my own personal story about that, but I just wanted to share that about that. Uh, so you talked earlier about when you're doing a portrait like this, you can sense, I'm sure you sense it with me and with that other person, blocks in their energy. Talk a little
Hmm.
bit about how that shows up for you when you're scanning a person's energy,
Yeah.
rainbow energy.
Yeah, so thank you for, well, number one, thank you for sharing that about your portrait because it really is beautiful. Like you, and that vibrant pink that you're wearing now, I think supports your heart and that supports the higher love energy. So I think it's just affirming that you're open to receiving all of that the universe has to offer, which is just a beautiful thing. So
Thank you.
yes, I
Thank you.
love that.
Thank you for
Um,
showing that to me. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
absolutely. I love that. I love the way that color ministers to us. I think that when I'm so the reading of the chakras is fairly new for me because it used to be that I would just look at somebody and get 2 to 3 colors on the spot and I would kind of go, okay, those are the colors. And then here's your portrait. But now it's sort of opening up a bit more where if I can really scan somebody and look within each one, I'll see a symbol within the chakra and then I'll kind of go, okay, what's that symbol? And so I'm building my symbol dictionary a little bit. And and there are some
Right.
symbols where I'll go, I don't really know what this is. Does this make sense to you? And trying to, affirm, does that resonate with you? Do you connect to the symbol? And then I'll kind of get to go, oh, okay, well, now I know what this means. So it's been kind of nice to put that together. But that's sort of what I do is I'll sort of scan and go, okay, what's the color? What's the symbol? And then what story is the whole rainbow, sort of showing me? And then if there are chakras where I don't see anything, it's either that there's something blocking that one or that they're not quite ready to use whatever that chakra is representative of. For example, if I don't see anything at the sacral chakra, then they may not be somebody who's ready to express themselves creatively, emotionally, sexually, or just not really fully connected to the essence of the sacral chakra.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of very similar to how I do with work with Reiki is you sense those blocks,
Mm-hmm.
when you're going over those chakras and you start to get an impression of what that block is associated with.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
just thinking that's very similar to Reiki. If you really kind of, if you're thinking about like holding your hands energetically over
Yeah.
the center and seeing, will that energy flow or will it be blocked? I think that that's similar, very
Yeah,
similar.
it's so powerful, the power of energy. I just wish I
Mhm.
can draw and do the portraits that you do. Maybe I'll try one day. I'll have to
You
come to
should try it.
one of your workshops.
Yeah.
Um, have you noticed any changes in your artistic style or approach as you do more of this work? So you just started talking about the symbols. Is there
Mhm.
anything else since that has changed or transformed?
Yeah, I think, at the very beginning when I was painting, I was very open to just letting it flow and very much like, I would sort of let the paint do what it wanted to do and step out of the way. And then for a little while, I noticed that I really wanted to try to control what it looked like or to make it look a certain way. And then things started to go bad. It was like, I was not, I think for one person, I was not willing to accept whatever the message was. And I think I did her portrait maybe 7 times. And finally, I said, get out of the way, just do the portrait, whatever it is, just let it be. And it looked exactly the same as all the others, but it was just smoother. And so it was just me trying to kind of control what it was. So I've noticed that the more that I let go and just let it be, the more beautiful and vibrant the painting is versus when I say, oh, well, I want more color over here, or I want more white space over here, that it's sort of like my spirit is like, get out of the way,
Mm,
like let us
yeah.
do our thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how we try to control that, and
Mhm.
and just opening up and allowing spirit to guide you. It happens more fluidly.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Anyone ever ask you to identify or like they come to you with a specific issue, like, I'm a relationship issue. Can you help me out with that or anything like emotionally related? Did you ever?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question too. I think that so I'm remembering back to like color consultations I've done with people. So they'll come to me and say, I am trying to attract a partner into my life. What do I need to do for that? And I'll go, okay, well, let's talk about what colors do you have in your home? Like what color do you have in your bedroom? And so I'll kind of like dig into the color meaning. In this particular case, this person needed to have more pink in their bedroom because pink is going to attract that love color. It's a little bit like feng shui and color and chakras and all the things, all because energetically it's all very similar. So in some cases, it's like, well, do you have things in your room that represent pairs? Do you have two nightstands or do you just have one? Do you have any pink in your bedroom? Do you have, things like that? So we would kind of consult on it, and then I would help pick out paint colors for for them to use in their home that would offer them some calming energy, some openness to love, some maybe little pops of orange to open up and awaken that sacral. So we've done some of that to help support the intention that they're trying to draw. And then, you just made me think in my Facebook group on Sundays. Didn't do it yesterday, but I should probably do it today. I'll say, like, what's your intention for the week ahead? What are you trying to create this week? Or what's your one word, goal? And then they'll tell me their goal, and then I'll tell them what color will go with that so that they can intentionally use that color this week to sort of, attract to themselves whatever intention
I
they were
love
trying.
that. What is the name of your Facebook group?
It's called the Color Club.
The Color Club. I will put this all in the links. I just remembered I need to get all your links. Um, so that you can use your soul portrait the same way,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
take so what can we do with those soul portraits? We can wear colors, right?
Yep. Yes, exactly. You can
Yeah.
wear the color, you can put it, or you can surround yourself with the color. You can eat the color if the
Right.
if the food exists, right? And you can meditate with the color too. So I think this is something that I'm working on developing now is sort of like intentional meditations with color. If you're trying to create or manifest a particular kind of energy, learning how to visualize that color around you so that you are working with it, because I don't think we're aware all the time that all the colors that we wear or surround ourselves with are both communicating to us and ministering to us in some way, and there's something really important about that, and I think everything communicates and ministers to us, like music, like art, like color, like anything that we can see, feel, and experience is telling us something. And I think when you become aware of how it's communicating to you, then you can start to harness it in a productive way.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And it's okay to wear those darker colors that if you're feeling you need to do some shadow work and wear those. I'm not a big fan of wearing white because I just am not, but maybe I need to figure out why and incorporate more white to see what happens. But I was thinking also crystals
Mhm.
are different colored crystals represent the chakras, and you can surround. I love crystals, so you can surround yourself with crystals. And then, does a person's colorscape, I'm going to use colorscape, but does it change? Can it change? Let's say a year from now or 3 months from now, and someone may want another soul portrait, or they can or they start to see that they're resonating with different colors. Do people come back and have new soul portraits done?
Yeah, they do. They do. It's interesting. Like the color that I see for somebody is kind of like a snapshot in time. And so I would say within a couple of months, 6 months to a year, there's probably a new opportunity to choose to see things in a different color. A lot of people will go through color phases. You're like, oh, I'm in a pink phase or I'm in a green phase. Or I remember a long time ago, we were planning to move from New Jersey down to North Carolina, and yellow came in really strongly for me. It was like I couldn't get enough yellow. And at the time, I didn't know what yellow meant, but I noticed it. So I was kind of like, oh, wow, I'm really drawn to yellow now. What does that mean? But that was representing a huge shift in identity, a huge change in where we were living, where we were working, what we were doing. So yellow was showing up strongly to say, like, to hold up a sign to say, like, identity shift happening, like pay
Yeah.
attention. So it's fascinating to watch that happen for people too.
And it's important to note that because I know because of this pink attraction I'm having, I was like, I want to paint my office pink. And then I know if I do that in a couple of months, I'll be like, maybe I should paint it something else because pink may not be the color I love at the time. I need it now. I'm I'm creating this relationship with this color pink right now. So I'm trying to figure out how it's helping me. When you showed me that portrait and like I said, you didn't know anything about me and you just showed me this pink. I'm like, wow. I'm still amazed.
Love
Oh,
it.
it's great. I love this
Yeah.
stuff. You had a previous life. You were in HR, right?
Yep.
So you did the corporate thing. I know your mom as well. So I love how people can change direction and pivot like you did because you're doing something you love. So talk a little bit about like, that whole story.
Yeah, that was I think one of those things that my friends and close family will look at me and go, I can't believe you did that, right? Like because I was just, the HR gal. I was getting my certifications. I got my certification in coaching, and I had done really well for myself in HR. I was working for creative companies. But I just felt like unfulfilled in some way. And I think I had been searching for different things that I felt like were going to make me feel more creative or more inspired or just kind of bolster me to sort of get through the day, but it wasn't enough. And when I started working with a spiritual teacher and I started really kind of reconnecting back to that, I'll say inner child, right? Because I think our gifts show up when we're young. Little Heather was an artist. She loved music. She loved to draw and paint. I minored in art. Like that was always there for me. I was really curious about color. Honestly, even as a little kid, I wanted to change my room all the time. And so it kind of got to this point where I was like, this doesn't feel good to me anymore, and I don't feel like I'm going to survive it. It was like stress inducing and all those things. And so I started painting again, and I started to sort of like make plans in my mind for how to transition out of corporate and to do my work full time. And then the universe showed up one day with both an art show and a promotion on the same day, and was kind of like, what do you want?
Wow.
Um, so I had to choose. And so I chose to go down this path. And I'm really happy that I did. It's been hard. It's been very hard. I think choosing this path that's so, I would say, like, different is so, not what society is
Traditional,
like. Yeah. Like, oh,
quote
you did.
unquote, normal, traditional path.
Exactly. Yeah, that has been so different. Um, but I honestly don't think I would have survived that traditional HR world anymore. It was just beating me up. So it is hard to be an artist. It is hard to be a business owner. It is hard to be a mom and a wife and to have to manage the mental load of all of those things. But I'd much rather be, I would say, like, stressed by this kind of stress than by the other kind of stress, because I get to, show up each day and work on being my most authentic self and work on trying to offer healing and peace for people. And I know that when I do a portrait for you, there's just as much healing in it for me as there is for you. And so that's the kind of thing that I really appreciate, is being able to offer that to people who, get a portrait, to teach them about color. And it also helps support me too.
Well said. Beautifully
Thank you.
said. I love that. And I am going to highlight that in many, many, many social platforms as I can, because what you said resonated with me very much. I was also in HR and then had my twins, and I couldn't go back, and I had missed it, but I knew deep down inside I had other callings. I didn't know what they were. And I was always very creative as well. But, I went down the healing path of learning Reiki and being a yoga teacher. And I always wanted to be a journalist when I was a child. Since, oh my God, for years, I wrote for papers, and I wanted to work in broadcasting. And at the time, there weren't a lot of women. But now I'm doing this,
Mhm.
the podcasting, and I'm healing people and helping people. So it happens when it's supposed to happen.
Right. Right.
Right.
I
And
love that so
it,
much. Yeah.
yeah, and when you said you show up as your most authentic self, that's how we all want to show up in the world. So that's a great message for people, for women, for men, anyone out there that is struggling with where they are. And I know everyone can't just, maybe quit their job and do something like this. There's this financial,
Hmm.
the financial part of it as well, but you can always plant those little seeds
Hmm.
and see what grows from them. So I
Yes.
really appreciate you sharing that story. That was
Thank
great.
you.
I love that. As far as who can benefit from your art and intuitive guidance, you many people, right? So not
Hmm.
just women, men, even children,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you ever do any for
Absolutely.
pets?
I did do pet
Let's talk
portraits.
about that because we have a lot of
Yeah.
pet lovers out there.
Yes, I did that a couple years ago. I want to say it was like right at the start of the pandemic. I was like, let's do some pet spirit portraits and see what happens. And so people would send me pictures of their beautiful, fur babies, and I would do an energetic portrait for them. And they were so amazing because they were all upper chakras. They were all like
Mhm.
third eye crown colors for pets, because they offer this unconditional love and acceptance for us that really were just beautiful, sparkly, lovely portraits for them. I've done them for people who've passed away in memory of people, which has been really interesting too, because I think when people have transitioned, they offer such a different perspective on things. And often their portraits are like 7, 8 different colors that come through, which is really remarkable. So, yeah, anybody can really benefit from seeing what color their energy is, and just I like the reaction that you had when you saw yours is very much what people they do. They kind of go, oh,
Exactly.
and there's something that like seeing themselves in a color or seeing themselves represented as spirit on paper, they kind of are like, I am beautiful. And I'm like, yes, you are. It's just like it's a very healing, loving experience to see yourself that way. I think to see us as a higher power sees us.
Yeah, something as other this physical form when we look in the mirror, we're not happy to see all the time,
Yeah, yeah.
or even in our thoughts and in our minds. And when
Uh-huh.
you look at a portrait like that first vision of it, there's such a pause, and it's almost as if like time stood still, and I was trying to just reach into it or have that come into me. And it was over Zoom because you showed me over Zoom. I was like, I wanted it. I wanted it to be a part of me. And when I got it in the mail the other day, oh my God, it was very ritualistic when I opened it up and I took it
Oh,
out. And I relived that whole experience again, seeing it for the first time.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it was just amazing. I love how you've done it for pets. I really love also how you've done it for people that have passed. A lot of people, that need healing, need to connect sometimes with people who have passed, and having that portrait that once again represents them, but at a different level or a different realm is really powerful.
Hmm.
It's healing, maybe even for the person that passed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
Mm,
true. And I think sometimes we have trouble, like you said, looking at a physical picture or looking at ourselves in the mirror sometimes, but seeing it represented as just a beautiful, abstract, colorful, sparkly painting makes you just appreciate that memory or that experience in such a different way.
absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever created your own soul portrait?
Oh my gosh. No, I don't think.
What? Okay, now you need to. And you're gonna
No.
we're gonna showcase that one because I'm curious.
Oh, that's so interesting. I feel like every piece I do is sort of autobiographical in a way. Um, I think that there are parts of me in each painting. And what's really interesting is I think that sometimes when we create, whether we write or we make music or we make art, sometimes we look at it and when we don't like what we see or hear, and we're like, oh, it's just not good enough, or it's just not whatever, or what have you. And for me, what I've learned, especially with my abstract paintings with brushes, is that my marks are really rigid and sharp, and sometimes they're really tight. And I have had to learn to love my mark making. And I
Mm,
think that that's really symbolic, I think, for a lot of people, that you have to learn to love your mark making, even if it's not what you expected it to look like, because it's just what comes out of you naturally. And so sometimes when I'm painting, if I see that mark making, I'm like, oh, all right, well, that's just me. That's just how I make my marks and how I leave my marks, and that's fine. But
why are we so hard on ourselves? I do the same thing when I'm going through the audio of this. I edit and I'm like, oh, I don't like the way I sound. Or why did I do that? Why did I say that? And so I'll be editing out these little blurbs here and there once in a while, a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think it's just part of a conditioning that we've been through, and we want to do well, and we want
Mhm,
others to say, hey, you're doing a great job, or that's beautiful. But yeah, we all have flaws, and I'm not saying your markers are flaws, but
mhm.
we're not perfect. And
Right.
I don't know if that's something that women feel, maybe women my generation or women in general, that
Mhm,
there's this sort of, I feel imperfect, or I have moments of imperfection. I don't look perfect.
mhm,
And we need to soften those edges,
mhm.
and not be like that so
Yeah,
much. Because
I
then
agree.
I think that blocks our potential.
It's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And
I feel like there's so much potential in me just loving the mark making, right? If you just love the way that you work, if you love the way that you sound, if you just find this place of unconditional love and acceptance for yourself, there's so much on the other side of that that's powerful and beautiful and wonderful, but you kind of have to get over that, the
Yeah.
judgmental mark making side.
Yeah. And I think that's where your work can really help people and benefit people because once they see one, the colors that are important for them to use right now or in the future, invite those colors in. And also when they see what you see in them as a person, they can start to shift, make those subtle shifts and transformations. And I always use this analogy. You can hear all the podcasts, and I always use this, but it's like you're opening up this little door and they're peeking into a whole new world that they can explore about themselves and heal and change and move forward.
Yeah.
I love that. We all need a little guidance,
Yeah.
some more than others. And that's the work that you're doing. You're helping people on here's your yellow brick road, or here's your emerald city. Go
Yeah.
for it.
Exactly.
Think about
Exactly.
Wizard of Oz. It was all full of it was the
All
first
colors.
color Technicolor movie.
Hmm.
First one. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And
And the
the
Ruby Red
colors,
Slipper, there's a lot of color in there.
a lot of colors, and they represent we can do a whole color analysis on the Wizard of Oz.
I know. My
Right?
friend keeps telling me to do that. She's like, you need to do a color corner where you just talk about the color symbolism in a movie or the color
I
symbolism
think
in this. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
absolutely. Oh, very. I love that. I want to be a part of that. Um, what advice do you have for anyone who is an artist or wants to explore this type? I know not everyone can has the synesthesia,
Mhm.
but there are people who are artists out there. And any advice you have on having them, uh, or any advice on to give them on how to explore art more intuitively?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to
My
say.
friend Emily, I can't take credit for this because she's told me this before, but she says when I get stuck on something to stop trying to make art with a capital A and make art with a lowercase a. And I think that gives you permission to sort of play a little bit and explore and, just experiment with different ways of making art where there's no intention of showing it, selling it, or sharing it with anybody. You're just making art for yourself. And I think that gives it time to breathe. And I think it gives it time to just sort of like communicate with you what it wants to be. And then you can start to make the art that you feel really strongly about. And so I feel like, that like playing with art and letting it sort of tell you what it wants is a really good way to just connect intuitively. Um, and another thing I like to do with people is to say, okay, if you want to be more intuitive, what do you want to let go of? What do you want to attract to you? And kind of close your eyes and go, what does that look like? What color does it feel like? What shape does it feel like? And put that on the canvas. And then if you want to attract abundance or love, okay, what color does that look like? What shape does that look like? Then that helps you sort of express and connect to yourself more intuitively too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even if you don't use colors, you can just do it with a pencil and draw.
Yep.
Yeah, I did that once. I did it was like a spirit guide portrait, and I said, I want to try this. I just meditated. I connected with my guides, and then I just started drawing, and I drew this person who I'm assuming could be a spirit guide or an ancestor, but I was like, it really looked like a person. I
Awesome.
was like, wow, it's really, really cool. Yeah. Because I've
That's cool.
heard people doing that. There's people who they just tune out and they channel.
They channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of what you're doing in a
Hmm.
way. You're
Yep.
channeling the energy as well, connecting with the energy, but also using your, your gift of this. And I want to say it again, synesthesia,
Yep.
to create these healing portraits, these soul portraits. It's fabulous. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Oh, I do want to. I have another question.
Yeah.
How do you disconnect from people at the end? Like, how for us as for Reiki healers or healers, like I usually kind of sweep my energy or try to disconnect because we're tuning into their space. Is there something that you do, like a ritual?
That's a great question. So I'm not very good at that. And I've had to start to build more of a practice around that because if I go and do a spirit portrait party where there's like 12 people that I'm doing portraits for, I come home completely wiped out and I have
Yeah.
to kind of figure out how to slough that off. So I usually like take a shower or light some sage or Palo Santo and try to clear my energy field. But I will start to do that more to disconnect so that I can I think that probably happens naturally when I disconnect from the portrait, um, but I don't have a particular ritual around it that I
Mm.
probably should build one.
Yeah, I think just being aware of you start to sense that your energy is not your own
Yeah.
and that it feels heavy. I think the shower thing is important and the
Mhm.
sage, but just, just creating this system or mechanism that you can just like,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, totally.
one of the techniques that I use and I share with people, and I can't take credit for this. I was taught this was rainbow energy tornado, where you,
Oh,
yeah. So you picture a rainbow tornado.
okay.
Doesn't have to be a crazy one. And then you just sweep it over all around you, outside your aura or around your aura, inside, all over, all the way down to the ground. Let it go to the ground. And you can do that all over your property, your own space, because their energy is in your space.
Yeah.
And just do that rainbow energy as a protection and a clearing.
Oh, I love that. I
I
love
know.
that.
Cool,
I can
right?
see the rainbow tornado in my
Yes.
head too.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a nice way to disconnect the energy and to sweep out anybody's stuff. So even your
Awesome.
own. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
I love that.
Is there anything else you wanted to add? I know I'm going to do all the show notes, the links in the show notes about
Mhm.
you and how they can find you, your soul portraits. Do you wanted to add anything else?
Yeah, do you want me to say anything about the, where they can find me on
App.
Instagram or anything, or
Yeah,
will you
you
do
can
that?
now, and then I will put in the show notes as well. And I think you said you wanted to mention
Oh,
something
yeah,
about the discount code.
yeah.
Cool.
So I love to connect with people on Instagram and socials, and my tag there is at Heather Eck Artist. And I also have a special discount for your listeners where they can get 25% off a spirit portrait with me using the code podcast. And they can
Awesome.
get that at heathereck.com/thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And your websites are beautiful, and you do showcase or you show some of your artwork. I know you had one out there of Taylor Swift, which I thought was really cool
Oh,
too.
yeah, like Taylor.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, and your energy is so lovely, and I'm so happy we connected. And you are going to just continue to do what you're doing. And I know you're growing and evolving, and you're really getting your work out there. And it's very life changing. I know for me, it just did something. I had such a shift in
Oh,
myself when I saw that, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you for being here today, doing what you do and being this beautiful, colorful light that you are. So
thank
thank
you,
you so
Rose.
much.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you for joining me here on Chat Off the Mat. I hope these stories have inspired you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with those who might benefit. Your support helps me spread awareness about the power of transformative healing. Stay connected with me on social media. Reach out with your own healing stories or topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Your voice is an essential part of this community. I hope that your healing journey is filled with self-discovery, curiosity, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the power that resides within you. Until next time, I'm Rose Whippage, wishing you a journey filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities.